Lyle Shelton is the former Managing Director of the Australian Christian Lobby. He's now the National Director of the Family First political party. He joins me live from Melbourne. Thanks for joining us, Lyle. Tell me straight up, is Andrew Thorburn now unemployable, even though he used to be one of the nation's top CEOs? He used to run the NAB, one of the big four banks. Is he now unemployable because he's a Christian?
Well, it seems so, Chris. What Daniel Andrews is doing, he's embarked upon a pernicious and sinister defamation of good people in our society. But it's not just Christians that he's going after, Chris. Many people don't realise that you can't even be a parent and exercise your parental rights in this state. He has jail terms for parents who try and encourage their children not to take puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones or irreversible surgery. This is a dangerous state of affairs that Daniel Andrews has created. He's weaponised the law against parents, and now he's defaming Christians and making them unemployable, and this has got to stop.
Well, this is much bigger than Daniel Andrews, though. I agree that he stridently criticised Andrew Thorburn, but so did many others. We've seen this reflected in other issues in other states. I mean, where is the Australian Human Rights Commission on this issue? Where is the Equal Opportunities Commissions? I mean, you're not supposed to discriminate in this way. We know there would be hell to pay, and rightly so, if this were a Muslim or a Jew or some other devout person from another faith being excluded in this way.
Well, Chris, we know that 5 years ago at this very time, some of us were warning during the same-sex marriage debate that if we degendered marriage, we would lose freedoms and we would see people persecuted and hounded out of their jobs. And surprise, surprise, this is where we are. And the human rights commissions, the government-funded human rights commissions at the time, were egging on same-sex marriage. We were told by the leaders of the same-sex marriage movement that this wouldn't happen, that no one else's freedoms or rights would be impaired, that no parent would be subject to having their children indoctrinated in gender-fluid ideology at school. All of these things have happened at a great rate of knots, and there's been no protections for freedom of speech and freedom of religion and parental rights, despite the promises that were made 5 years ago. It's dragged on, and the activists have continued their crusade to cancel anyone with whom they disagree.
Yeah, well, it's up to mainstream Australians and politicians to stand up against this. Give me a Christian's perspective on this, right? Because I know many of good and tolerant Christians who would say that homosexuality is sinful, but those same people surely would also say that it's a sin to mistreat, to ridicule, to exclude or demean homosexual people in any way.
Well, Chris, the first thing that any person who is a Christian or someone of faith realises is that they themselves are a sinner. That is fundamental. That's Christianity 101, and that's why we're attracted to the faith, because we know we are in need of salvation from our own sins, let alone pointing the finger at other people. And that's why I say this is a pernicious defamation of good people, because, yes, the Bible and Christianity treats a whole range of things as sinful: lying, cheating, adultery, but that doesn't mean that Christians are bigoted towards their fellow Australians who tell lies or whatever. We know that we all stumble in many ways and we all need salvation. It's not about bigotry or appalling beliefs, as Daniel Andrews would say. Christians are actually the most tolerant people, but we do aspire to live by a high moral standard. No apologies for that, no surprises there. That's what's made the West great, is this aspiration to morality and aspiring to be our better selves. And we should be able to encourage that in society. It's a voluntary religion, no one's forced to, and this is a pernicious defamation of good people. It's a twisting of the truth, it's a big lie, and it's very, very dangerous, and it's defaming a lot of really, really good people in our nation, not just Christians, but also Muslim people who hold to family values, and mainstream Australians of no religion who also believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, and that gender is binary, and they're not bigoted for holding those views.
Well, it's just an extraordinary situation, and I hope we get broad mainstream support for change here, Lyle Shelton, because, frankly, as the head of the Australian Christian Lobby and Family First, people will expect you to make those arguments, but you happen to be right, and I think people, whether they have faith or not, ought to stand up for equal treatment under the law. Thanks so much for joining us, Lyle.
Thanks, Chris.